Good morning, everyone. Thanks for sticking around today. It's an awesome privilege to be together as a family of God in this property that He has given us. We've been here almost 30 years, and it's exciting to now think, how does God want us to use this property in the future? And so today you can see in the outline today, we're going to talk about why do we need to update the master plan? How do we determine our needs? And some of those needs were known before we even started this process, obviously. What are our needs? What are the priorities we are putting into the planning for this property? And then we'll get to the fire part, the part you're all excited about, where Greg Ernst from AODK Architects will come up and share with you the master building plan. And I know that's what you're excited about to see. But I want to kind of lay the groundwork before we get there. Because after he presents that, we'll talk about costs and what next steps are we going to do. And so it's important, though, to understand where we were and where we've come in the last 15 months, as Jim was mentioning, as we prepared for today in this presentation, and as we look forward to what the Lord wants us to do with this property. So this is the Master Building Plan Update meeting. So again, thank you for wanting to stick around and discuss this. My part will go pretty quickly, I hope. So as we lay the groundwork for the how and the why we're doing this, because I know you are very interested in the where and the what, right? So we'll get through this. Okay. So why update the master plan? Why do we need to do this? Well, first off, the master plan is almost 20 years old, so we've had quite a few changes since then, including we have purchased and cleared 3 properties in the front of our entryway here. So we have a clear path to Lander Road. We're more visible. We have more land. So what can we do with this land? And finally, the other thing is we need to evaluate our current and our future needs as we continue to grow as a congregation. So how did we determine our needs? What did we do during this process? Well, the first thing is we formed a building committee which included elders, staff members, members with construction work experience, and all these people have a lot of ideas of what we need to do, what our current needs are, as well as our future needs as well. But it was a great, varied committee that we put together with a lot of knowledge in different areas and different ministries, and it was important that we get everyone's feedback for this process. So that building committee was formed, and then we had interviews with architects. We had 2 architectural firms that came in to speak to us, including AODK, which is the one that we ended up hiring. And during that process, we interviewed them and they gave presentations for some of the things that they've done. There were several things that really stuck out about AODK, which is why we went with them. They've done a lot of churches, first and foremost, in the area, tons of churches. And they had a lot of references and a good reputation. They've worked with my school, they've worked with Westside Christian Academy, they've worked with a lot of area churches, and they come with a great reputation again. Also, in their presentation, they shared with us some of the ways that they share master plans, and some of their technology things were just outstanding, and you're going to see them in a little bit and be pretty impressed, I believe, with what you see. And while we've been working with them, they have proved to be really in tune to our needs. We're willing to listen. I don't think Greg raised his voice one time with all the annoying little things that we asked him to do and to tweak throughout this whole process. I know he didn't. But he really listened to our suggestions and really tried to incorporate them into the plans for the building. We then sought input from all the ministry leaders and all of the staff members, and then also included ministry teams. So each ministry leader asked specific people within their groups to join and talk to the architects about what do we need in this property, what needs to change, what needs to be added, what needs to be gotten rid of. All those ideas then were incorporated in to a presentation to the building committee as we met and talked about and kind of synthesized our needs and crystallized everything that we were looking for. And by no means, when I share the needs, will it be an exhaustive list, but I'm highlighting some of the big ones that we do need. And those building committee meetings We had lots of back and forth with the architect, tweaks to the plan. We had about 24 meetings after that, so there were quite a bit of things that were done with the interviews and the tweaking of the plan. And Jim Pictionary, a big shout out to Jim, because he was instrumental in the communication between AODK and the elders and the building committee and everything. So he did a lot of work in trying to develop these times for meetings that worked for everyone. So thank you, Jim, for that as the main architect of the architectural firm discussions. Okay, so what are our needs? I'm sure you can guess many of them as we sit in this sanctuary. We talk about our property. If you were at men's breakfast yesterday, you were like, I think there's a need for that, because we were in a third of the sanctuary. We had 75 guys and could not fit in the fellowship hall. So we know that there are certain needs, but also you may not be aware of some of the needs that ministry leaders live through every day, or staff members live through every day. So let's start to look at our needs. And the architect did meet with all the ministry teams, and he shared the needs in kind of a synthesized fashion, and we prioritized that list and came up with the following list of overall needs for our master plan. So first off, the biggest thing is fellowship ministry space. That's our biggest need right now. We have men's ministry, like I mentioned yesterday, 75 guys, and how do we fit in the fellowship hall? The women's ministry has people that are sitting in the hallway outside of the fellowship hall because there's not enough room. Youth group, do they have a dedicated space? Not really, that's conducive for what they want to do. Thrive, same way. Thrive uses a part of the sanctuary on Tuesday nights and has to set up every week. We have also ministry events like children's ministry that needs spaces. Funeral luncheons. Can we really hold a funeral luncheon in the fellowship hall? Leadership meetings, workshops, seminars that we want to do. This is our biggest need, is the fellowship hall space, the fellowship ministry space. We have ministries that are over capacity. We have ministries that are at capacity and are probably going to grow as this church grows. So we have a large need for fellowship ministry space. Our worship center can hold up to 400 people, right? So you might be thinking, well, how does that impact, what's going on in fellowship ministry spaces? If you really consider the size of our worship center, it is not in proportion to the sizes of other places in our building. For instance, we could have 400 people in here, but we can't have 75 guys at a men's breakfast in a fellowship space. So it's not really proportional to our needs for when we do these fellowship ministries. Could we go to 2 services? Yes, we could. But could we really want to do 2 men's breakfasts and 2 Thrive groups and 2 youth groups? It doesn't make much sense, right? We want those ministries to be together, and really it's our desire to not go to 2 services. We could if we needed to, but the fellowship space is what really the problem is. Could we take down chairs like we did for men's ministry yesterday? Yes, we could, but we have multiple events sometimes that go on in a night. Are we going to put half of them over here with a wall here? It's really hard to have fellowship ministries really go, even if we go to 2 services here as we continue to grow. Plus, this place, if we were to tear down chairs all the time, how much manpower, staff power does that require? And when you get to it, is it really an intimate place? I mean, it's kind of cavernous in here for a ministry group to meet in here, right? So, and again, we have some events that overlap with each other. So that's really our greatest need, I believe, that the committee believes as well. So next, wouldn't it be nice to have a larger foyer and entry? How many of you are like almost on a billiards table as you try to get out the door? You bump into this person, you go the other way, right? And you got to try to plan your route so you don't get knocked over or something, right? So it is kind of hard to exit this place because we also are a church that likes to gather together and converse with one another and fellowship with one another, right? So we don't want to lose that part. We don't want to lose that at all. More classrooms and larger classrooms would be great. Again, the husband of the children's ministry director. I needed to have this on the slide for sure. We have one class that currently meets in the fellowship hall, and anytime someone wants access to the kitchen, they are bugged at that time, right? We have several other classrooms that are near capacity, and keep in mind that you cannot plan a children's ministry based on averages. Well, the 5th grade and 6th grade, they average 12 kids per Sunday, so we plan for 12. No, you've got to be ready for the Sunday that there's 20, right? So you've got to plan for the max, not the average. So that makes it a little bit tricky. And we also need room to grow, right? We know in the future that we could have growth. So that's important to have more classrooms and larger classrooms, and they can be used for things like seminars, when you have breakout sessions and things like that. As we grow, we know that we might need more staff, so we would need more office space for staff. Whenever you do some type of master plan, you not only want to meet the current needs that we have, but you want to plan for the future as well, right? The disability ministry, our Together ministry, right now they meet in room 222. Have you been in there? You see that big conference boardroom table? It's not very conducive to a disability ministry. There's not much room in that place. So we need to consider that, because that's an important ministry in our church that we've developed. Counseling space. Right now, if you're a counselor at Cornerstone, you probably wonder, where can I meet someone, right? Is room 222 available? Can I use someone's office? If we had a dedicated counseling space, that would be great for that very important ministry in our church. What building in America doesn't want more storage space, right? That's huge. If you've ever taken down these chairs, where do they go? Over there, and then over here, and you sometimes can't even open the door, right? So, and that sometimes has been the prayer room, not when chairs are in there. That's not happening, right? So storage space is huge. And security is very important. Security of the building. As we continue to grow and as we add things to our church, we want to be able to lock off part of the building that's not being used while one part is being used. Also, right now, our children's ministry, we have kids there, we have kids in the middle, we have kids in the fellowship hall, we have the disability ministry back to the left. They're all over the place. This plan would be sufficient for putting them all in one wing, all behind a table or a, what do you call that? Reception desk, thank you very much. That way, they're all in one area, and that area can be secured. And so that's pretty important to us as well. So those are our needs. It's, again, not an exhaustive list of what our needs are, but it does hit the highlights of what we need. So next, what were the priorities that we determined when we made this plan? We determined that any building plan would be done in phases, first of all, so that ministries will function during construction. So while one thing is being done, we can still have Sunday school. Once that's done, we can replace where we're using right now into those rooms so we can build the next part. So phasing is very important when it comes to this, so that ministry is not stopped in any way. Phasing also allows for future growth. So as we looked at the whole property, we made plans for phase 1A, phase 1B, and then phase 2 as we look at continuing to grow. And the possibility at the end is, do we have a full-blown sanctuary where we're meeting instead of in this multi-purpose room? So you'll see that in a moment too. We wanted to create flexible and multi-use spaces. So if you think about it, how many ways can we use something that we build is always on our mind. We prioritize creating spaces that could be used for different ministries, as well as different sizes of groups. For instance, you'll notice in the plans that when we talk about the children's wing, we have some removable walls between 3 of the rooms, so it can create a bigger fellowship area as well. Or a children's church, whatever our desires are for that in the future. And we want to build in a cost-effective manner. We all know the day and age we live in right now with how expensive things are, right? So we want to be able to use what we have, get rid of what we feel it should be gotten rid of so we don't have that burden of an older building. We tried to watch out for hey, do we really need to move that utility? That's an expensive thing. Oh, what's the EPA demanding of us? Can we work around that, the way that we've structured everything? So we tried to do this in an effective manner when it comes to cost. Okay? So that is the how and the why behind what we wanted to do. I'd like to introduce to you Greg Ernst from AODK, and now comes the sizzle to the program. Thank you, Greg.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Ernst. I'm Vice President at AODK Architecture, and I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you guys today. I just want to mention right off that it's been a pleasure working with everyone at the church thus far. You have like amazing godly leadership in this church, and it shows by the many people that are here right now wanting to see what next steps are for the church. So I'm going to be walking through what that looks like in both plan, rendering, and then we have a movie walkthrough at the end of it. So, okay, so 2023 master plan. You've already got a pretty good idea of what led up to this point, and now we're going to run through just some of the plans, talk through some of the phasing, and then how the additions that we're proposing are going to look. So right off the bat, we have, this is your property as it sits today. Main entrance drive is here. Lander Road is up on the right-hand side here. Existing church sits here. Parking lot up over here. And then this dark line here is the property line. And so what we're planning on doing, well, actually, this is the existing building layout as it sits currently. Sanctuary is the room that we're in right now. Obviously, you should be pretty familiar with this. Children's wing down here. We've got the entrance with some additional classroom space here, and then church offices, fellowship hall. This is all just to orient you with the plan. So the two areas that we're looking at are right here in the middle, where the courtyard is, and then up over here on the north side. So first phase, which we're calling phase 1A, is to build a 9,800 square foot children's wing addition. The reason for phasing, as was mentioned previously, is the fact that we want to make sure that we're not interrupting existing church access, entrances, and office space with the construction. So we're proposing to build this large green area. This will house, and I'll show you this a little bit later on, but this will house additional classroom space, a new gallery or foyer entrance, and a drive-through drop-off area with a canopy that will come through here. So we will be modifying some of the parking lot to make this happen, but for the most part, it's going on in the grassy area that's just over there. Phase 2 will be the removal of this central element. We went back and forth on this a lot, and actually we went back and forth on the viability of this existing front part, but it was determined that this would be the best element to take out. It's really not getting a lot of square footage, and in doing so, that frees up space to be able to put in a new connector in between the two buildings as they sit. So after this is done, this entrance element would come down, and then we would put in a 4,600 square foot fellowship hall addition in the middle here. And I'll show you the plans a little bit later on as well, but this will have new restrooms, a new entrance into the church, and also a couple counseling rooms, and then the fellowship hall. So what that looks like on the site plan, again, that's the children's wing addition, 9,800 square feet, 4,600 square foot fellowship addition in the middle. As far as the site goes, we are not planning on doing anything expansion with the parking lot in this current phase. There will be, like I mentioned, some modification up here because we will have a drive-through canopy for drop-off area into the new foyer and then back out. So there is a phase 2 plan, which I'll show you in a little bit, which basically shows how the parking would expand at that point. But at this point, for phase 1A and phase 1B, we're not proposing to expand the parking lot. This gives you kind of, if we took the roof off of the building, what this is going to look like. So we're obviously in here right now, sanctuary. The phase 1A Children's Wing addition being here. You can see how the drive-through would take place here into a new entrance. This would be a new gathering area, foyer or gallery that would build off of the one that you currently have over there. The new classroom wings, and I'll get into the expandable and modifiable room space off to the side here, but we've got 5 classrooms here with the large corridor. And then the fellowship hall right here, new entrance element here, bathrooms and counseling rooms. And then we're doing a small modification to the office wing, which I'll get to in a second. And then the existing fellowship hall would still be maintained as a meeting space for larger groups, but not quite as large as what could be housed in the fellowship hall addition. So the red lines delineate basically where the additions will take place. So essentially this entrance that you currently come through into the foyer would be shut down in order to make this construction happen. So in the meantime, you'll be coming into the existing entrance between the connector element here. And then once this gets done, this will open up for main entrance and egress from the building. And then this addition will get done. Obviously, while that addition is getting done, we're going to have a temporary access to the office space. But for the most part, breaking it up into 2 phases really helped figure out how to mitigate keeping the church open. So here's a view from the main drive aisle. Basically what you see here is the carport up over here. We've got a pretty tall glass element denoting the main entrance of the church, which we wanted to get some height to get a little bit of view from Lander Road. As was mentioned previously, we're opening up you guys have been purchasing property to be able to open up view to the church, and so what we want to do is really start saying, hey, instead of this being the front part of the church, we want to raise it up, get some light, get some life coming out of that. This is a little bit of a bird's eye view. So this is that phase 1B entrance that I had mentioned. Office space off to the side here, fellowship hall in the back, and then the new main entrance, car canopy drive-through here. You can see the roof of the existing sanctuary that we're in right now, and we're essentially wrapping the addition around that to be able to put the children's wing here. So the existing building ends somewhere right about here, and then that's where the entrance is. So we're building off of that, keep maintaining height all the way up and around, and then lowering the roof height a little bit just over the classroom space. As mentioned before, this is the office entrance. Getting a little bit of height here just to denote the importance of it. So when you walk through here, you can go to the left. That'll be where the offices are. To the right would take you to the foyer, and straight through would take you to the new fellowship hall. We're matching all the same materials that you currently have with this CMU, split-face CMU, same colors. Really making this seem like a cohesive addition so that it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. The big thing we want to do is just get some more glass and get some of that transparency and visibility into the existing, or into the new church elements. This is a view of the drive-through canopy with the main entrance into the sanctuary gallery, and then again the office off to the side. Just a little bit closer up of that main entrance. Couple sets of doors, a vestibule for a windbreak so that when you come in, you're not, I know it gets a little cold here in Cleveland, so we want to make sure that we're maintaining that. This is a little bit hard to see, which plans are usually a little bit hard to see, but I'll try and walk through and describe everything that you see here. Carport, drive-through here, main entrance element here, and what we have, we got a small welcome center, which will just be some millwork, to put some leaflets or pamphlets out. We'll have a TV up, and you'll see that in one of the renderings. That basically just kind of talks about what's going on in the church at this time. The connection point will be through what is essentially the main entrance now. So we'll be taking out the coat closet. Here we'll be leaving, you can't see it, but there's a utility room that we decided to leave. So you'll have a connection straight through here. There'll be a gathering space basically for some tables and chairs. We've got a coffee bar here, and then a secondary kitchen. It'll be just enough to kind of get that coffee bar going. but still maintaining the existing kitchen that's in the office wing. Then we have a secure children's check-in point here. The reason why we like doing this is just because we want there to be, one or two people that are always standing there for people coming in and out of this hallway. This hallway is about 10 feet wide, and we want to, that's great so you're not bumping into each other and playing bumper pool like was mentioned before. And then there's an egress door out the side here, and then there's 5 classrooms. So we got a nursery room, we've got a shared children's restroom that goes in between the nursery and the toddler classrooms. And then we've got 3 classrooms above that. These are large classrooms that will be able to accommodate future growth. And then off to the side here is flexible classroom space. Now during, when phase 1B is occurring, this can act as a fellowship hall, as a large meeting space. You can see some very faint dash lines, but these are called operable partitions. So basically you fold the walls back, or you pull them out if you want to break it up. So you can get 3 large individual classrooms or 1 very large meeting space here. And then we also have a teacher workroom right off the hallway here, and through that is some storage space, much needed storage space. And then we also have a nursery room off to the side here. So, ample size for 3-4 mothers, if they need to go in and nurse. So that's right off the hallway. Down over here would be a connection point for another egress door. And then we've got some coats, relocated coats onto the wall outside, which is essentially right across this wall. And then we've got a utility room, a little bit of storage space, and then family restrooms. These will be individual restrooms, 2 of them, that you would be able to go in and change and do whatever needs to happen with the kids or whatever the case may be. And then we also have a connection point directly from, which would be in that window right over there, directly from the sanctuary, so people can get right to the kitchen, or I'm sorry, to the kids wing from the sanctuary easily, in and out. And when I was here today, for service, I think that light went off, about 15 times or something like that. So people are in and out all the time. And I get that. My kids are grown now, but I remember doing that myself. So that's the overall plan of the phase 1A. And then moving forward, here's some images. So we were toying around with the idea of just leaving the existing material on the outside as the interior. So as you can see here, this is essentially where the circular window would be. We would take that out, more than likely. These are still preliminary images, by the way. But this would be the door in and out of the sanctuary directly into the foyer. Looking at introducing some planters, potentially a moss wall. Again, these are preliminary, but we want to give a feel of what we're going for, just to bring a little bit of nature inside. And then we've got a nice tall structure, very similar to what you see here, would be bridging off of that going into the addition. So this is that higher element roof that I was talking about before, and then it goes down a little bit when you get into the kids' wing. Toying around with the idea of the fireplace, honestly, I threw that in there and no one actually said anything about it. So we may or may not do that. Okay, we got one guy, he wants it. Pastor wants it. So I don't even know if it's possible, honestly, but it looks cool. What kind of an architect says that? Anything's possible. And so right down here, you can see the coat rack, and back into the corner there is where the kids' family restrooms are, down into that utility closet. Kids' wing would be off to the right. Off to the left is where the connection to the existing foyer is. So here you can see this is where the doors are now, basically. Coat closet's somewhere right about here. And then we're maintaining that utility closet here. And you can see how this is going to connect through into the existing foyer. A little welcome center, TV, some millwork to be able to put there. Looking back just a little bit more, we've got the coffee bar over here, some tables and chairs, the amount of glass that's coming in with the sloped roof and canopy. So this is where mostly everyone will be coming in and out of. This will be the main entrance, basically. Okay, looking back, we got the main entry here. Kids corner, again, is something I just made up. So, but that's kind of, we want to, I was discussing a little bit like a branded kids wing, because right now it's, it's just the additional classrooms, it's kind of spread out. This is consolidating everything into that one corridor. And then you've got the millwork element here, which is that kind of security element between the hallway and the main foyer. So right here you can see right down through that corridor here into the kids wing. And then in the kids wing itself, one thing we like to do in most of our church projects is to inset the doors so that those doors swinging in and out is, it's not getting in the way of traffic. This is still plenty wide to have multiple people being able to, I know how crowded it can get in a kids wing hallway. So we want to make sure we're giving ample room for people, because before and after service it can get pretty busy. So, and then straight through, which would be directly that way, we would need a door to be able to lead back out for egress capabilities. To the right is the flexible room space with the operable partitions. And then to the left is all the kids' classroom space. Here's just a typical children's classroom. Each one of the classrooms will have a sink, it'll have millwork, plenty of storage space. You can see where the doors are, and then each classroom will have its own window as well. Okay, so phase 1B. So after phase 1A is done, we're taking that center part down as described before. We've got the office, new office entrance here. Right off the entrance with the vestibule would be 2 counseling rooms. And we went back and forth a little bit with where these guys should go, but it was determined that it would be better to put it out here as opposed to into the office space, just a little bit more accessible, so that when people come in, they're able to, I think potentially looking at a buzzer system or something to let pastors or counselors know that someone's here, and then they can run in here and meet for a little bit. More storage space right here. New restrooms right here while still maintaining the existing restrooms here. And so the new restrooms would just be because we're adding square footage. These would be a little bit more dedicated to the fellowship hall itself as far as the proximity right across the hallway here. And then this would be glass and drywall wall here, and you'll see it in the renderings, but just being able to close this off so that people could come through here should additional events be happening in the sanctuary or somewhere else in the church, that we'd be able to maintain privacy, for events that are going on in the fellowship hall. One thing that we did as well is took over this classroom. Now that we've got the new kids wing across the way, we've got this for storage, for being able to move the chairs and being able to set this up for the round tables as is shown for a banquet, but there's a multitude of ways that you guys can use this room and set it up. Maintaining the existing fellowship hall as it is. The other thing I'll mention is that we are raising the floor. If you remember, you go down the corridor there, you're going down a ramp. And so the goal here is to leave everything from this point to the left would be on that raised level, so there will be no level change between here and the new addition. Obviously, same thing for the kids wing. And then we will mitigate the ramp down once you get into the existing office space here and here. It's a small 6-foot ramp right there and there. We also have double doors for security reasons leading between the office space to the fellowship hall, and then from the office space to the corridor. And then the couple minor modifications we're looking at doing here is to take out the 2 existing restrooms that exist here, move the conference room up to the front so that it's not buried in the back so much, get it up here so that more people can use it on off hours, and then divide where the old conference room is into 2 new offices for future growth. The other thing now I'll mention is the youth area is essentially right here. We're looking at that those walls would come down after most of this is done, so that a dedicated youth room would be able to be put where the existing classroom spaces are now. So it's shown in red, it's kind of hard to see, but basically it would be this whole area right here. So this is right inside. To the right of this image right now is where the existing, or the new entrance would be. Down here, and the counseling rooms would be over here. To the left would be the fellowship hall, and then straight ahead would be the existing foyer. This would be the fellowship hall. This is the double doors that I showed before leading to the kitchen ramp that would go into the existing kitchen so that people would be able to service it back and forth from there. And then taking advantage of the beautiful land that you guys have around in nature, we want to put 3 sets of double doors out the back side, and then potentially looking at putting a pavilion out there for outdoor services and stuff like that. Just off to the right here is the little slivers where that storage closet would come in, so that all these tables and chairs would be able to be stored away if necessary. This is looking in the existing foyer back towards the addition, which would be right through here. You can see how we're widening this up and having a nice passageway between the two. And then a little sliver right there of where the new restrooms will go. That's phase 1A and phase 1B. Phase 2 is looking at the fact that, I had mentioned before that we were on the fence about what to do with that existing office wing. It's dated, it's still in good shape, it will last you a lot more years, but in the end, if and when this phase 2 starts to happen, we would need more office space. And so what we're showing here would be taking that office wing off, putting a new front on the church, and putting that addition right there, and then locating the new sanctuary facing out towards Lander Road. Right here, there will be new restrooms, family restrooms, storage, sound booth, all the stuff that goes along with new sanctuaries, and then a new gallery space. So the new entrance would then face a relocated entry drive right here. So you would pull in on access off of Lander Road, great visibility. We would still have a drive-through here. For the most part, everything would remain the same here, except where we're at now would essentially become the new larger fellowship hall. It would be a flex space or gymnasium, playroom. It can be anything, really. You've got a lot of height in here, so this can be whatever we want it to be. But the classroom space would then get blown out so that this connection could happen. So again, this is down the road, but we always want to make sure that we're not choking off a property or putting additions where they shouldn't be put, so that we are able to maximize the building and the property in the future for future generations to come. So this is what phase 2 is essentially panning out to be at this point. That's it.
Thank you, Greg, for offering to pay for that fireplace. That's now public record. I actually, to be honest, I thought that was a TV with one of those YouTube fireplace things on. We play that at Christmas time, like 20 hours of Christmas music when we are too lazy to start a fire. So,
Whatever's cheaper.
well, I don't know. I think you've kind of committed yourself to the fireplace. We'll see about that. So let me just remind you of something that really has been a philosophy of this church from the very beginning when it started in the YMCA back in, what was that, 1989? Yeah? The church is the people. The building is the tool. Okay? That's the way we function around here. The church is the people, the building is the tool. And, we're thankful that the founding members of the church didn't consider the YMCA to be the church, because we'd have a hard time fitting in there right now. And so we're grateful for that vision and how the Lord opened this property up, a little church that had closed its doors permanently, and one of our members got word of it, and the Lord led through all of that. So we're excited about that. Let me just take you into, where are we now? Okay, here we are. This is the one you all wanted to know. So phase 1A and 1B estimated at $3.6 million. Phase 2 to be determined, who knows if and when we do that. That's all in the Lord's planning and guidance and leading. And, if it happens, maybe it'll be when my grandchildren are old enough to hang drywall. I don't know. But as Greg said, really crucial when you have 7 acres within the city boundaries and no way to expand that property anymore, you have to, in your planning, think about the whole big picture. And that's, we spent, I don't know how many meetings looking at 4 different potential renderings of how we could use this property, and eventually landed on what was presented to you today. But we're calling this phase 1A and B because really together they meet the needs that we have. It's not like one meets the needs and the other one doesn't. They really have to happen together, but not at the same time, because of our first priority, which is that whatever building we do take on as members, we don't want to get in the way of ministry, because the church is the people, the building is the tool. So we want to make sure that ministries always continue. And so we're not going to tear down the nursery and toddler nurseries and have nowhere to go with the kids. So that's why phase 1A here takes care of all of that. And in case your heart is still racing from the 3.6 million, we actually had to shave that down. The original was somewhere between 5 and 8. And we looked at that and said, okay, what can we do differently? What parts of this complex can be saved and continue to be used? Instead of just trashing the 100-year-old section completely, everything beyond that firewall, we thought, okay, how can we continue to use aspects of it? One of the plans had a whole new kitchen. Well, if you've ever done a whole new kitchen in your house, you know what that costs. Well, think of it on the commercial level. And so we went through all of these kinds of processes in our minds to pare it down to this. And I was really struggling with this. number until one day I was bringing the kids to school. 3 of our kids go to Willoughby, a school in Willoughby, and so we drive from Chesterland to Willoughby, and there's been this house that has been being built for 2 or 3 years now on the north side of Wilson Mills, and the kids were wondering how much it costs. I said probably $2 to $3 million. That's a house for one family. So I thought, okay, 3.6 doesn't sound as bad when you think of it as a home for 400 people. That sounds a bit better. But there is what these additions do, as Scott mentioned at the outset, is they finally bring balance to the property, in the sense of we have a worship center that seats 400, but none of the other facility can in any way handle the growth that this sanctuary was built for. And so now it's time to balance that out through these additions. That $3.6 million quite possibly can be shaved down, and we don't know by how much. That's for you members to decide.
Well, he's got the fireplace, right?
The fireplace is covered. Yeah. So, but this room that you're sitting in, and the foyer and the classroom wing, that was all built by the members of this church. Okay. I mean, obviously, you hire out what you can't do. But but that's for you members to decide. That's not for us as elders to say, okay, we're going to do it for 1.5, and that means that you guys are going to work 120 hours a week for the next year, in addition to your normal job. So, but there are certainly things that we can talk about. Members, you guys can talk and let us know. I know that if we do that, I'm first in line to be finish carpenter, because that's what I was before I was a pastor. So we'll just have to see how the Lord leads in all of this. But God's put so many gifts and abilities in this congregation. But again, that's for you to decide. That's not for us to commit you to do. That's for you to commit yourselves. And that's all that's all stuff we can talk about in the months ahead. So we'll have to just leave that as a wide open door there, okay? So where do we go from here as far as next steps? First of all, everything you're seeing here today will be accessible later this week on the church website. Be looking for the newsletter on Thursdays that always arrives in your inbox. And there will be a link there to see, again, all the stuff that we are throwing at you in 1 hour time today. There will also be a Q&A that we have scheduled for Sunday evening, the 21st of May at 6 p.m. And in that link that you will receive on Thursday, there will also be, if you follow that link, there will be a Google form whereby you can, anytime between now and May 22nd, throw a question in there so that we know what the questions are. Because there's been 40 or 50 of us involved in all this from the beginning, but we don't still know what all the questions are. And we need to hear those questions from you. Then we'll have as many follow-up meetings as we need throughout the summer to answer your questions. As Scott said, here it is. Everything you see today is the best we can do to tell you what we've been doing for 15 months in over 24 meetings. And that's a lot of hours to try and encapsulate into 1 hour today. So we will have as many follow-up meetings, Q&As, as we need to have. Just a reminder again, the church is the people, the building is the tool. Many members make up one body. So I would just say to you, as a member of Cornerstone, commit yourself today to be involved at whatever level you are able to be involved in. All of us, obviously, should be calling upon the Lord. We should be praying, Lord, guide us, lead us. You've been blessing this church in wonderful ways these last 30 years, and we want to continue to be used by you in this community, and even, Lord willing, someday planting churches in area communities. And that's another reason why we feel phase 1 and 1A and 1B are especially important, because in order to become the equipping center that we really want to become as a church, we've got to balance out the space imbalance that we have here, so that we can continue to disciple, equip, develop. And we've taken some steps toward that, because I don't know how many of you were here way back, seems many years. I mean, next month it'll be 9 years for me. But when I preached some sermons out of the book of Acts and how we should think about church planting from book of Acts and book of Titus, and just how important it is that when the Lord does lead us in that direction, we want to make sure that as a mother church, we give birth to a really healthy baby that's going to be able to function and thrive and become its own thriving congregation. When I was pastoring in Wisconsin for 20 years, there were so many churches there that never got off the ground because they were a part of this plan that a church had to plant 50 churches in the next 10 years. And that was the goal. The goal wasn't, let's get equipped and let's plant healthy babies. Let's just plant as many babies. Let's just have as many babies as we can have. But, how are they going to grow? And so we want to, that's a balance. We trust the Lord for that. But we also want to be wise in our planning and equipping of, and we also started 5-6 years ago an internship strategy here as also part of that, because when we do plant a church off of this mother church, we want it to be a like-minded church in doctrine and philosophy of ministry and passion for the gospel and so on. So that's all a part of our thinking. You may remember way back when we started buying those properties on the street, I planted in your minds that Acts 1:8 philosophy of ministry, the both and. It's not either or, it's both and. And so by God's grace, He worked through all of us. We got rid of all of our debt, and we're able to rethink, okay, where do we go for the coming years and decades? As Greg said, we're not planning for ourselves. We better be planning for the next generation. We better be thinking of the generations that are coming after us as we think about our planning. And then eventually, this would require a member vote. We're not doing anything without the members, the members of Cornerstone, saying, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And you are the ones who decide. That is the way we function. We're an elder-led but congregationally governed church. And so you as members would be the ones to decide that. And then prayer for this God-sized project. As I mentioned before, the Lord so graciously worked, and in a matter of 3 years, we were able to pay off all debt in the church. So about a year ago, around this time, is when Scott was up here and he tore the mortgage to shreds and threw it on the floor. And that was a glorious day. And so we want to also be careful in that area. We are not a church that believes borrowing money is a sin, because the Bible doesn't teach that. But the Bible does warn us to be careful. The Bible warns us to be wise in our planning, careful in our debt load. And our lender is connected to the Free Church of America, and so they're very church conscious. And so they primarily work with churches. They do not want to see churches strapped to mortgages that are too big for them, so that their ministry ends up being hindered. And so we don't want to be a debt-heavy church. And so the Finance Committee is still working out all of that as far as what we would even qualify for. It sounds like we may qualify. They would want us to have $3 million in the bank before we break ground, which actually is a good problem to have. I think all these problems are good problems to have. I was telling the elders or somebody, I don't remember, but this is what did I do? I thought I was all I wanted to do was point. Okay, I can't point. So this is a God-sized project. That's what I said to the elders and staff. I said, what excites me the most is that we cannot possibly pull this off. Because if we could, we would be tempted to pull it off in the flesh. Say it? This is an easy one. Let's just do it. No, this is a falling on our face before the Lord and saying, Lord, you have raised up this church, and we believe you want to continue to use it on the east side of Cleveland. And we are asking you to provide for this God-sized project. So the Finance Committee is doing research and things into all the ways that we can and should be praying. But as I mentioned, too, to someone recently, there's this balance of faith that we see in the Scriptures, that Proverbs, for example, over and over tells us to be wise in our planning. And yet I've seen too many Christians take that to an extreme whereby faith is almost eliminated from the picture completely. Oh, we can't do that. That's absolutely impossible. So let me challenge you, if you're one of those impossibility thinkers, the first thing that comes to your mind is, oh, that's impossible. Let me just encourage you to remember that we serve a God who specializes in the impossible. We really do. And if you're one of those super hyper planner people who doesn't do anything unless it's really fixed black and white on paper, you're not going to take a step forward. I ask, let's pray that God would give us that balance of wisdom, but not a so-called wisdom that says no to faith. We need to trust God in this. If this is how he leads you as members, we are banking on God to be the one to make this happen. If you haven't read Numbers 13 and 14 lately, I encourage you to do that, because as we think about those 12 spies that went into Canaan, 10 said, never in a lifetime are we going to do that. And 2 of them said, you know what? It's massive. It's massive. But our God is more massive. And so I want to be like Joshua and Caleb. I don't want to be like the 10 spies. I want to be like Joshua and Caleb. And I pray that God would help all of us to grow in our faith and in wisdom. So we thank the Lord for what he is doing among us and what he will do in the future. All right, we have time maybe for 2 questions today, but like I said, May 21st, Sunday evening, we'll go as long as we need to answer questions. If anybody has any questions today, you feel like, I won't be able to sleep tonight if I don't get this question answered. Joanne, you can't sleep tonight. Okay.
I was wondering, once the project would be underway, how long it would take.
Well, that will greatly depend. Understand this is a Finnish carpenter talking. I'm not a construction guy, but it would depend, I think, mainly, Lucio, you might agree, or Dan, if you're still here, Hotchkiss, he's a general contractor as well. But these general contractors, it's going to depend on how much, if any, and how much of the work we would say, we're in. And as much as possible, my family's going to be at church on Saturday for the next 9 months or whatever, every Saturday. This is what we're doing. And we're making this our church. I don't know. Year? 6 months? Year. From the time we break ground to the time we walk through and we're part of that video. Yeah, 1 year for each phase. Phase A, 1A, phase 1B. So 2 years once we break ground. So 3 million, then we break ground. Well, members vote first. You guys got to decide. This is what we're going to do. $3 million, break ground. 2 years later, we're enjoying all of the space. 1 year later, kids are enjoying their space. Does that answer your question, Joanne? Okay, great. Thank you for answering it, Lucho.
Once the construction starts, will it affect services on Sundays?
Absolutely not. No. Nothing will stop moving. Again, that's why these phases have been planned the way they've been planned, because twice, I think Greg referred to this little utility closet out here in the entryway. The reason why that little room is so important is that's where the water main comes in from the city. We trashed that room, and you're talking massive money. Another reason why we didn't go this way. The electrical from Lander is underground all the way to the back corner of this building. That's why we didn't go that direction with the children's wing. Tens of thousands. We don't even have an estimate as to what it would cost to relocate that main electrical that comes in from the power company, Lander. The gas comes up and over the office building. It comes up and over the office building and the existing nurseries. So we chop that section out first. Sorry, guys, no heat for a year. So every one of these things we've read, well, I think we've thought of everything, but it's like when you tear down a wall in your house. Oh, I didn't think about that. But we're trying, with the Lord's help. Okay, that was the 2 questions. Is there one more that just you will die this afternoon if you don't get this question answered? Okay, then Terrell, that is your name, right? Okay. Some people, they run at me and I'm like, who are you? Yeah.
So assuming everything goes as planned and you do get the members vote, when is the groundbreaking date? Or you don't have yet?
Yeah, ask the Lord about that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Potentially, if these follow-up, however many follow-up meetings we have with the members, if you guys are like, yeah, we want to do this, then probably in the fall is when we would have a meeting whereby we would actually officially vote as members. But again, there's no set timetable. We're just, this is 15 months of work we've presented to you. We want you to know where we've been in our mind and heart and where we believe the Lord would have us go so that you can be praying with us. This is your church. It's not my church. This church was here a long time before I showed up, and it'll be here a long time after I'm gone. So, God willing. That's the way we function. The church is the people, the building is the tool. And right now, I just want to publicly say as well to all of you ministry leaders, because I know there have been many times where you've been working with a dull tool. You've been trying to make some pretty accurate sketches with a broken pencil or with a really dull pencil. What I mean by that is the flexibility of the ministry leaders in this church is remarkable. Meeting wherever we have to meet to make it happen. It's wonderful because the church is the people, the building is the tool. So let me leave you with a verse from Jeremiah 32 that just thrills my soul. And yes, thank you, Terrell. So you'll be handed one of these as you leave today. It's just a double-sided flyer that shows you some of the pictures that we saw today. And on the back side is a chart with 2 columns. It tells you more specifically, or reminds you of what you saw today, what phase 1A involves, what phase 1B involves. So when you read this chart, read down, don't read across. I'm a left-right reader, and so when I was looking at this chart, I was like, this doesn't make sense to me because I want to compare this to this. Don't do that. Do this. Oh, okay, this is phase 1. Oh, okay, this is phase 1B. But it gives you a little bit more explanation, things to ponder, things to pray over. I also want to just thank Greg for his immense patience with us all these months. So many meetings, so many, we changed our mind about that. I'm not going to change my mind about the fireplace, though. All right, so Jeremiah 32:17. Love this. Jeremiah the prophet says, "Ah, Lord God, it is you who have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and by your outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you." So, if in the weeks ahead you are tempted to think, too hard, too big, impossible, look outside, look up into the night sky, and say, if God could just, in a word, throw planets already spinning exactly where they need to be, if he can create fruit trees with fruit already inside, seeds already inside the fruit, ready to multiply, is this too difficult for you, Lord? Absolutely not. So let's stand and pray together, and then if there are any Cliff Bars left out in the foyer, just take as many as you want. One. When you're done, I have one comment. You have one comment when I'm done? Okay. I don't know, should we allow Ed to have one comment? Should we have a member vote on that? Okay, let's pray. God, we thank you so much for the work you are doing and continue to do here at Cornerstone. Lord, over 30 years ago, you gave birth to this church that started meeting on the back deck of the Bucci's house and then moved into the YMCA and then years later moved into this property. And you are an amazing God. And forgive us, Lord, there are times our faith is too little and we just don't remember who you are and what you've done. So help us to have people, or to be people that have really big faith, or may I say, faith in a big God, maybe is the better way to say it, because you are the one who can do all things. Nothing is impossible for you. Give us wisdom and guidance, because we don't want to act in the flesh in any step along the way. We just want to be led by your Spirit. And we trust you, God, that if this is your will, that you will provide beautifully, gloriously, in your way, in your timing. And we will be content with that, because we know that with you, all your ways are perfect. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.